Thank you for joining us this afternoon as we discover the path to business value. And I want to walk through a little introduction here of my own background in Agile transformation. And so my name is Scott Burdette, and I'm the Vice President of Application Development for ICC, Information Control Corp. We have about 200 folks in our group, and we really started doing Agile 5-6 years ago as a transformation. My background, though, I grew up, was born and raised in West Virginia. So if you can't understand my speech, that's why. So I was in West Virginia, and I realized very, very early in life that I would not make a good coal miner. So I decided I need to go and do something different because coal mining was not in my blood. And so, technology seemed to be something of interest. I went to a school in West Virginia, and out of school, I graduated and got a great job working at Spencer Gifts. You guys know Spencer Gifts in the mall. So I was at Spencer Gifts and looking for my real job. And I moved from Spencer Gifts to EDS. So EDS hired me. Again, I was in West Virginia on Friday working in Spencer Gifts in this mall. I get in my car and drive to Detroit, Michigan, and start Monday for General Motors and EDS. And so quite a transformation for myself. So I started that track and started delivering large-scale projects with General Motors. And I was an application developer, moved from application development, became an architect, an application architect, moved into a project management role and really liked working with people, working with technology, and solving problems. And so moved from project management then into business leadership. And as I said, I'm running a line of business now for ICC. And over time, we understood this speed to value and understood that we needed to produce business outcomes. And so we started our transformation several years ago, and want to talk about that transformation and also how it applies to business value today. So the challenge that we want to cover is, there are a lot of sessions going on right now that are telling you how to use Agile. How do you transition Agile, and then how do you physically move to a Agile process within your organization? We want to talk about that just a little bit, but I also want to move the conversation to why. What is the driving factor to get you to Agile, and focus on the business outcomes that Agile processes are supposed to deliver to your organization. And then really an Agile attitude, understanding that the idea of continuously improving and looking for the efficiency of development as well as the effectiveness of the organization, and continue to improve that through the life of your development process, and really partner with your business and deliver outcomes. And be able to enable effective business strategies. So that's the bottom line, to be a partner to the business in delivering solutions. And then how do you measure that effectively, and how do you make sure that the organization has the right goals and you're focused as a team on the right goals? And so to address that challenge, we're going to talk about going Agile and then fine-tuning Agile. How do you number one, you transition Agile, and then number two, how do you then fine-tune that to make the most out of your Agile process or Agile procedures? And then understanding the organizational impact and focus on that organizational impact over time. And then, again, measuring that value. And we've developed a maturity model to talk about business value. And so we're going to introduce that today and get your feedback on that. And then question and answer. And so one thing I want to make sure that this is informal, and so raise your hand, ask questions whenever, interrupt. I'm fine with that. That's great. And so the big question that you've probably heard several times over these past 2 days is why Agile? And you've seen the stats. You've probably read about it. You've probably lived through a couple of these projects where 35% of requirements change throughout the software life cycle. And then 45% of delivered features are never used. So what we end up doing is we end up developing many, many things. Number one, the requirements are changing as well, as you see down at the bottom, incomplete or unstable requirements, and that drives to project failure. Then if you are successful in delivering a project, a lot of times the features aren't even used, and so you're spending time and money that you shouldn't be. So then comes these promises of Agile, and the visibility, transparency of status, transparency of progress, transparency of objectives, and then adaptability. Again, making sure that you have an Agile attitude, not getting caught into the rigors of just another software development process, but making sure that you're evolving your Agile process and driving to deliver the most value, business value, while you decrease the risk over time. So those are what we see to be the 4 promises of Agile, the reason to adopt an Agile process. And so, you've seen these guys, right? Let's go Agile. And so they just run and jump. They're ready to go. And no planning, no thought, no, they don't even know where they're going. They're just ready to jump in. And I don't know if you guys, in your organizations, you guys doing that? Have you seen that happen? Where, it's a buzzword of Agile, so let's just go Agile. And, and a lot of business owners and a lot of leaders here, they think Agile, they think chaos. And a lot of that is called out because, or it's created because there's not a plan in place. People just run to Agile. The other extreme then is sitting back and analyzing it to death. And we've been involved with a couple of clients, I won't mention names, but locally, where they've put out an RFI, we want to do an Agile transformation. They put out an RFP, then they put out another RFI and another RFP, and they're not making decisions. They're really trying to find this right fit for themselves and the right project and the right group to come in. And as a result, they just get overwhelmed, trying to analyze this Agile approach, and you can't steer a parked car. You got to get moving, but you got to know where you're going. So what we recommend is a balanced approach. Don't overanalyze, but also don't just jump in. Figure out what your goals are. Figure out where you're going. Map that roadmap to your destination, but then also make sure you understand where you're coming from. Make sure you understand what your organization looks like, and what will work well within your organization, because it's different organization to organization. So make sure you take a balanced approach when you start to think about going Agile. So what's driving this within organizations? You talk about the capabilities earlier about transparency and reduce risk, but really the pressures on organizations today. Your board of directors, your CEOs are sitting around and they're thinking about these things. They're thinking about growth. How in the world do we grow in this economy? And how do we cut costs? While we're growing, how do we cut costs? How do we define competitive advantage? What are we going to do to maintain our market share or to increase our market share? And then what about innovation? How are we going to innovate to continue to be a different company as we move forward, so that we can continue to attract people and attract business and attract partnerships? And then there's always a need for information. And the driving need for information now is mobile, right? They want any information anywhere, anytime, in any form. We've got business leaders that are on the beach in Costa Rica with their family, but they still have to get on their iPhone or iPad and find out what's happening back in the office. They want to see a dashboard of what's going on right now. And you have to prepare and provide that information so that they can make the right decisions. And then the most disturbing thing that, in my mind, is the opinion of the business or the CEO on the CIO. And you guys have probably seen it, maybe lived it a couple of times, where a CIO is brought in, they're delivering to the needs of the organization. Maybe they install an ERP, which is a big one, or major projects, or they're trying to transform the organization. And at the end of that transformation, or in the middle if it's going wrong, the CEO keeps his job, but the CIO is dropped. They drop the CIO and pick a new direction. And so as a result, a lot of CEOs, and this is a survey from Gartner, a lot of CEOs look at the CIO as a transient specialist. They don't look at them as somebody that's a business partner who's really enabling. Back to the points of what we're talking about today. And it's not good. It's not good for us as IT. And so this conversation today is about driving that business value so that we have a seat at the table and making the CIO and the IT organization relevant to driving business value. So that's the CEO and the board of directors. Now you have the pressures on IT. And the pressures on IT are, again, the information needs. You've got to stay up to date on the information needs that are pounding your organization and your business leaders and making sure that they have the right information at the right time so they can make the right decisions. Also, you talked about competitive advantage. Well, you've got to implement that. You've got to figure out how to break that innovation down into bite-sized chunks and implement it over time. And you also have to focus on governance, risk, compliance. You look at the financial meltdown and now all the new Frank Dodd regulation that's coming out and there's just more and more regulatory needs within organizations today and IT is getting pounded with these things just to keep the door open and just to continue to process, as well as security overall and all of that while they're watching the operating margin and making sure that they're not spending more than their budget outlined for them. Then the big thing is making sure that you are adding business value. You're doing all these other things just to maintain presence. Well, now you have to also focus on delivering incremental value. At the Gartner conference, they were talking about the CIO and how the CIO's role in IT is changing over time. And they said that they thought a major percentage of CIOs over time, by 2015, that a portion of their compensation package will be based upon revenue generation. So the idea of operating margin and keeping the lights on, it's just not going to work anymore. They're going to be driven to really invest in business transformation and making sure that they're delivering value. And then we have some technologists here, I'm sure. What are the technology trends? Things that we're seeing right now, gamification is huge. Next generation interfaces, making sure that UX is happening in a very positive, proactive manner. Augmented reality, in-memory computing for your mobile devices, 3D printing, the service digitalization. I mean, so you have these business drivers, you have these IT missions and the IT drivers. Now you have these technology trends that you need to stay up on as well. And so it really can drive an IT organization crazy. And so the thought behind this is to really have an agile attitude. As you start to think about all these things collapsing on your organization, you have to embrace change. You have to be able to seek collaboration and really tear down the walls between operations and your business units and IT. And then continuously seek feedback and not get rigorous about your processes, but understand that your processes have to change over time. Back in the old days when it used to be get it right the first time. Well, now it's about getting it right in small chunks or getting it close and then continue to evolve it over time. And focus on that customer outcome. What is the outcome that you're looking for? And then with that agile attitude, what you also do is you promote effective decision making. I don't know what your business models look like for the organizations that you're part of, but this is the flow that I see. Those business and technology drivers we talked about, they come in and they really drive your organization's business strategy. What are you going to do from a business perspective? What is your strategy for the next 3, 5, 7 years for your business? And you take that business strategy and you break it down into projects, and you build this project portfolio. Hopefully everything that you're going to do over the next period of time is understood a bit. You're doing some planning. Hopefully your business units are doing planning now for 2013 if they haven't already completed it. So you don't wait till November, December, and they start to put up business cases and ask for your input and ask for you to estimate and that sort of thing to build this project portfolio. And then take that project portfolio and break it into projects. and through a systematic approach, take those business requirements and deliver business solutions in some iterative fashion. That's the general flow that I see in businesses today. And so a lot of the conversation that you've had in some of your sessions, or maybe you're seeing within your own organization, is focused on that process of taking the business requirements and being more efficient in driving business outcomes. You know, changing the way in which you do work within your teams and the way you communicate back and forth with the product sponsor and that sort of thing, product owner, just to make sure you're delivering value. And that's really doing things right and driving that efficiency. So, you know, that was the kind of the business flow. Though the way that a project flows in a lot of organizations that I've seen is that you have these business needs, you know, and you take those business needs and you estimate the value and the cost, hopefully at a detailed level, of those business needs. And I've introduced two terms here, immediate value and ultimate value. And I look at that as just two different ways of measurement. And I don't know, be interesting to hear if you guys, if you outline value for your business cases, what type of value do you outline? You know, what I'm recommending is that you look at two things. Number one is, what is the immediate value? What, you know, when you put an application out, let's say you put a mobile app out, you know, the immediate value is, how many times was that downloaded? Well, the ultimate value may be, did you incrementally improve the user experience? Or did you incrementally improve sales based upon that application being out there? And I think it's really important that as business leaders and as IT leaders, that we think about not only the immediate value, but push ourselves to think about that ultimate value and articulate that and then measure against it. So estimate the value and the cost, prioritize the projects, select those projects like you would in the organizational flow, execute the projects, and then analyze that outcome. Did you really generate the value you expected, the immediate value you expected? And that comes pretty quickly, right? Immediate comes quickly. The ultimate value, it may take a long time. You know, it may be part of a 5-year growth plan, and you just have to see incremental gain over time to achieve that ultimate value, like driving sales by 25% increase or something like that. But the idea is that you're thinking beyond the immediacy and looking at the longer term. So, are you delivering value? So we put together, Daniel Greenleaf of COHAA and myself, we were thinking about how to build a maturity model around business value. And so we put this together thinking that we would try to encapsulate the thoughts and you know, everybody CMMI and that sort of thing. So, you know, we've taken a couple of their concepts, but the idea is the initial level is that you have a process for generating products on a consistent basis that work, and then managing that is that you're really starting to understand those processes better. You're starting to manage them. You're starting to plan, perform, evaluate, and then control those processes. And then predictable. Over time, what you'll start to see is, as you start to manage these processes, you'll start to see business value. And you'll start to see that you're delivering predictable results to the business. And then optimized, where you're measuring that, and now you're taking that information you've learned and you're changing the entire flow from the business strategy down based upon doing the right things for the company. And so I just kind of show of hands, if you were thinking about business value, how many would say that they're optimized in the organization today to deliver business value? Nobody? How about predictable? Do you produce predictable results? Couple? Very good. Predictable. What about managed? You guys managing it? Got some more hands? Very good. How about initial? Is that where most people are or no? Okay. So it looks like most folks have implemented, they have a process, and now you're trying to manage that and improve that business value over time. So let's look at that as these steps and what it means to you as an organization, and kind of where you are, and the thought about what you're doing with your agile processes. So initial, the idea is to create an SDLC and a governance plan and implement that for your organization. And that's what we consider to be kind of that initial phase. And then managing that would be to evaluate those processes and the efficiency within the organization, and then modify that SDLC to continue to drive the efficiency within it. Predictable. And that's where you are really starting to look at business impact and starting to understand and really deliver on a periodic basis that your business can now start to understand. Maybe it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it happens to be, but it becomes a predictable process for them, and they understand that, and they can start to get in line with you from a delivery standpoint. And then optimized. Again, that's being able to look at the business value overall and mapping that back to your organization, and really trying to influence the organization to make the right decisions and to look at where to spend their money to drive the outcomes, and make sure that you're both aligned to the same goals from a business perspective and IT perspective to deliver. So if you're anywhere in that process, first thing to do, you've got to get started, right? You got to figure it out. And so back to that balanced approach. Make sure you have a balanced approach. You understand where you want to go, but also understand what your organization looks like, and where you need to spend your time and effort. So define your SDLC. And many of you have raised your hand that you already have an SDLC in place. Maybe you already have governance in place. This is the model that we use within ICC. We call it our Accelerated App Dev. And basically it's our agile model, but we have what we consider to be accelerators that we've built over time to help accelerate the delivery of business features to our clients. And then we're able to modify this and leverage it based upon the needs of the client and the needs of that organization. And it changes over time. And so we see ourselves really consulting with the company that we're working with, and understand how to align this SDLC with their needs. So define your SDLC and implement that. Then over time you can adopt best practices. You've put this process in, so now how are you going to move that forward a bit? And again, it's best practices. You tailor that agile process to your needs. You prototype features. You start to build that in so that the business can start to see features while they're in the oven, while they're being designed and developed, instead of waiting till the end. Test-driven development, and making sure you're fine-tuning and understand how to leverage test-driven development effectively. Acceptance-driven, test-driven development. Continuous integration, just so that you continue to have drops of features, and you're continuing to do the test and deployment, and it becomes predictable, and it becomes a smoother process over time through that continuous integration. Behavior-driven development. I know there are a couple of sessions about BDD right now in this conference, and that's a different way of looking at how to approach testing, and it seems to be catching on, and maybe that's the right thing to do in your organization. As well as paired programming. Paired programming in some organizations just does not work. In other organizations, we found it works very, very well. So is that a best practice that you should implement or not? I'm not sure. That's something that you would have to evaluate based upon your organization, and again, the goals that you're trying to achieve. So those are best practices. Any other ideas of best practices? Is everybody awake? Anybody have turkey and they're asleep? Or so any other best practices that you guys have implemented that are different than these, or in addition to these? Nothing?
There's the people aspect of it too.
The people aspect? And what do you mean by that?
The servant leadership, being able to make decisions without management involvement.
Very good.
That seems to be another big piece.
Absolutely. Servant leadership, self-directed teams. Very good. Very, very good. And empowering that team, right? Very good. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Best practices. The other thing you need to do, once you have these best practices, is define the team roles. Everybody wants to be able to come in and do a bang-up job in their position, right? They want to add value. And so the idea is define the roles and set the guardrails in place for them to be effective. And it's product owner, scrum master, and development team. And true agile folks would say that a development team is a development team. In many cases, what we're finding within our projects, that we're breaking those down into roles. We break it down and bring user experience in. We bring BAs and QA and what we're trying to do from an efficiency standpoint within a lot of our development now, we're even bringing junior developers in where we've hired them from college, we've trained them, and they're working with a senior developer over time, and so they're building skills and they're immersed in this process. And the idea is to try to build up talent, and we found that's for us, it helps us to extend the team. It helps us to gain a lot of velocity, and it also helps us to invest in the leaders for tomorrow. And so, that's something we've done, and it's working out. It's working out pretty well because we've decided, just as a company, a long time ago, that we were not going to have an offshore presence. We don't today, so we're using this instead. But again, you have to define these roles and define the expectations and make sure that everybody understands what their role is in delivering applications. And then, what is the process? What does it look like? What is the length of time in your sprints and your releases? How do you get into that sprint? What do you do as you conduct the sprint? And then, how do you complete the sprint? And do your retrospective and understand what happened in the sprint, and how do you make effective decisions moving forward based upon the outcomes of those iterations. Here, this is 2 weeks, 10 days, but it can be whatever you like, and you can modify this to meet your needs. But the idea is to implement a predictable process, so that everybody understands when and how things are going to be produced. And in that transformation again, then what you're seeing is that moving from waterfall into agile, you're generating cumulative value over time, and you're also decreasing the cost because you're delivering components throughout the life of these iterations. And so your project run rate is pretty stable. The risk is minimized. I mean, there's still risk there, but it's minimized throughout the process. But you're generating this ROI over time versus waiting till the end for this big bang of, here's your application, now let's go test it. Once you have this in place, you have this predictable result. Everybody understands what the process looks like. Everybody understands what the role is. Then you start to look at, okay, how can we tweak that efficiency? How can we really drive more efficiency within this process? And a couple things that we do, we've automated a lot of our processes over time. And the idea is around increased efficiency here, real-time facts, is transparency. Really providing dashboards and meaningful information. It's real-time information. Yes?
Can you explain more what you're actually predicting? Because a lot of the speakers today have so far been very shy to make a claim that anything predictive.
So when you're talking about commitment to what the prediction is, right?
Right. What are you trying to predict? That's the word.
So what are we trying to predict? I would say what we're trying to predict is, we're sitting down and we're understanding what the outcome should be, and then what we're predicting is within a given velocity, a given time limit, how much of that feature and functionality that we can physically deliver, and then we're predicting these are the 4 or 5 features or whatever happens to be that we're going to deliver at the end of this sprint. So we're predicting on a per sprint or a per release. But again, the thought of Agile is that you've got to look at that at the end of each sprint, right? You get in the middle of the sprint and you're delivering features and functions at the end of that sprint, or as you're planning for the next sprint, which happens as you're conducting this sprint. You may be changing what the next sprint looks like. Part of that. I don't think that if you get into a rigor of these are our sprints, and we did that one time, a couple of years ago. We had a client come in, and we agreed to an agile process. And we thought, boy, we got this. We can do this. We know what the velocity is. We know what we need to do. And so we sat down with them, and they mapped out all their user stories, and we assigned them to releases for, I don't know, year and a half or so, about a year and a half. And then we set the expectation. We can deliver to that. Well, they fired the gun. We got started. Some of the APIs weren't there, and so you had to move things around. The business wanted to change some requirements here or there. They also wanted to drive into deeper requirements than were outlined up front. And it went haywire right off the bat. And so, the idea of what a predictability is to understand what your capabilities are. And part of that, and you can talk about estimation all the time. Part of it is about effective estimation, right? And some people have really distinct, firm estimation processes. But I think that my opinion is that estimation process needs to be for your organization, and you need to take you need to estimate for your capabilities and your competency and your capacity, and then build upon that from lessons learned. But instead of some formula out of a book somewhere. But that's what happened with that project that we had, and it really was bad. And so the idea was to work on a sprint by sprint basis and being predictive, and then once you have the backlog nailed, and then committing to what you're going to create in what you're going to deliver in that backlog for that sprint, and then reevaluate at the end of each sprint as you move forward. I don't know if that answered your question, or
I may ask you some questions after, but I think it's
okay.
You're going from sprint to sprint, or from release to release. It's not some long-term overreaching. This is what we'll always be able to do. It's just for your next iteration.
It's for your next iteration. And again, it can be as deep as you'd like for it to be. I mean, I guess in my opinion, if you're really agile, and the user or the business sponsor is coming in, and you're agreeing to something, and you're developing it, and it's not turning out as they like, or it's not being as accepted as they like, or they want to change it themselves. I mean, and you're locked into what you're going to do for the next 4 or 5 sprints. You've lost that flexibility to be able to adapt to their changing needs over time. But the idea is that what you were talking about, being locked into a sprint or a release. I guess predictive over time, but you also have to be able to have the agility to change. Sprint to sprint is what we would recommend, I guess. So increased efficiency, and then something that we're seeing more and more of is end-to-end traceability. How do you take a business requirement and be able to map that throughout the life of the project? Take the user story to acceptance criteria to work items, and all the way to defects. The idea of just being able to maybe automate that and show that traceability, especially if you're doing compliance-based projects where you get audited. How do you do that? In some cases that we've seen where people use the cards for the requirements, and they run the project and they forget to image the cards, and they never end up somewhere. And so something breaks 3 months down the line, and nobody knows what requirement or what test cases were driving that behavior. So now you're trying to change it on the fly and really be agile. So we're trying to really, our focus is to really drive end-to-end traceability. And then also make sure you equip your developers properly. Be able to take their development tools and integrate those into the process. We use a lot of application lifecycle management tools, ALM tools, where we would take the IDE and integrate that into the process as well. Task management. Being able to allocate, assign, track, and measure tasks throughout the life of the process. Making sure that everybody understands the plan versus actual velocity. Make sure they understand that how they're doing from an estimate to actual effort standpoint. And proactive planning. Understand where you're going if there's a divergence. make sure you address that proactively versus reactively as you start to hit the wall. And then real-time collaboration. That's sitting with the business, sitting with the product owners, but also using platforms for your instant messaging or whatever, that you have this real-time, real collaboration with everybody who can influence that project over time, or the outcome of that deliverable. And making sure that you're looking at that from a collaborative standpoint. And then avoid redundancy, make quick decisions, make the right decisions effectively, and make sure everybody knows that so you don't have divergence. This is big for us. One of the projects I was talking about, that large one, we had 5 teams doing remote development. There was a team in Toronto, there was a team in Atlanta, our architect was in Australia, and we had our development team here in Columbus, and our QA team was in India. And we really had to collaborate. It took a lot of effort to keep everybody on board and make sure that everybody understood changes, because we didn't have the luxury of making a change and allowing that to filter through the organization over time. Everybody had to know right now what we were doing. Else, it was really going to create chaos. And so we found that electronic collaboration platforms really helped in that situation. And then continuous integration. Making sure you're streamlining that deployment process and continue to deliver, test it and deliver. And so, the QA and the business sponsors and the product owners, they can continue to understand what's coming on a day-to-day basis and look at it, touch it, feel it, make sure they're not waiting until the end of a sprint to start to see some of your work products. So again, if you look at that, and all we're talking about right now is efficiency, right? We're trying to make your process work more efficiently. And so, again, that middle bar on delivering value earlier is, taking business requirements, running them through some sort of process, and delivering business solutions. If you have that efficiency of doing the right things, what you're doing is you should be in that cycle of then understanding lessons learned, applying those lessons learned, and continue to improve and measure over time. And this is a continuous cycle, continuous process. But if you're only focusing on the development process, I contend that you're really generating some efficiency, but it's cents on the dollar what you're saving the organization. I mean, you can be effective when you have a 50 or 100 person team. I mean, it costs a lot of money to make sure that they're all collaborating, they're all working effectively together, and you can save money from that operational efficiency. But are you doing the right things? Are you agile enough? And are you really looking at the value that you're delivering to the business on an ongoing basis? And so beyond efficiency, what I want to jump into now is really looking at the value of what you're doing, and how do you work with the business to outline what that value is, and then how do you navigate to that together. The shame is that a lot of organizations will implement Agile, implement a SDLC, the governance process, or maybe they'll even go to this far of creating that efficiency, and then they'll stop. They think that they have arrived, and maybe even become rigid in their processes, and become non-agile. And what we want to drive to is taking, again, back to that model we talked about before, that maturity model, and really trying to drive beyond managed processes to start to understand the business impact, really outline business impact metrics, measure those business impact, the business impact you're making, and then enhance your strategy overall. Make sure that you are able to realize business value. And from an IT perspective, what that means, in my opinion, what that means is that you're moving from managing the process to leading the process. You're moving up the food chain with the business. They see you more as a counterpart, working side by side with them, versus just managing a process to deliver to their needs. It's about that collaboration, truly being a partner side by side with them, and maybe even leading the ability to deliver to the innovation that they're requesting for you. Any questions on that, or you guys agree with that leading process? Yes?
From a metric perspective,
Yes.
and
If you go back to the immediate and the ultimate value that I talked about in some of the metrics, I would look at that to say, as you're producing and I'll get into that in just a minute to show kind of how to align it. But the idea is if you're delivering features for feature's sake, if you are delivering digital sales material, we see that a lot now where if folks want us to come in and they want us to develop electronic digital sales material that they can push out to iPads or wherever to their global sales team, so that if they make a change, they can adapt that change pretty quickly. Also, there's pricing changes. They could also drive video now or some more immersive type of sale side by side with the client. So you could look at that and say, okay, the business metric here is that we completed this on time, on budget, and we developed this in 3 sprints at this cost. And we got this out, and now 1,000 salespeople, let's say, across the globe are using it, and so there's some efficiency gain from them using it. But the long term, the real metric, the business value in that is, are you really driving increased sales? Is it really helping to drive increased sales because they have that material? So you can look at it 2 things from a metric standpoint. Are you avoiding mistakes? And so you're writing the right contracts now, or we had one company we're working with, and they had a hard time distributing pricing, and so as a result, they were writing paper for products that had bad pricing schemes in it. And it just, so you can look at the avoidance of those issues, but the real long term is, are you articulating the goals of of increased sales, and are you able to hit the increased sales goal? So does that answer your question? So here's some more stats around, or a couple comments around driving business value, and this is from another subject another report that I drew from. And if you look at that, 90% of projects that were delivered on time and on budget failed to deliver business outcomes. From an IT perspective, we're successful, it's on time, it's on budget. We're slapping high fives, we're going out and having happy hours. We're real happy that we delivered this thing. But we're missing the mark if we're not delivering business outcomes. Also, they say that the top performing projects, that 53%, they only average 53% of the business outcome that they were driving to. It's pretty surprising, to think about it in those facts. Also, how do you manage that a bit then? How do you really make sure that you're focused on the right things? And that is, the idea is that on time and on budget is just, it's necessary, but it's really not sufficient. And the number of project activities that you're doing, the number of status reports, the number of interactions you're having, whatever, only a few of those align with driving true value. And project managers, as you see here, they're the #1 driver in business value based upon this survey in making sure that your projects are successful in delivering to business outcomes. And the idea is to recenter your project planning and make sure that it's around business outcomes, and then and look at estimating and outlining the benefits. Yes?
When you say from that point, it sounds like that's focusing on the project team and the Agile team, and I don't know where you're going with this.
I don't either.
Yeah, we'll scale fast. So what I'm saying from this point is, wouldn't you put that more on the business and really looking for the business to provide that, not the project manager?
I think it is. I think that it's a two-way street. The business is looking for us to deliver to their innovation or to deliver to their ongoing needs. But the idea is, I think that we have to work with them to help them understand how to articulate what they're looking for and to help them make the right decisions. And that's where I'm going next with this. So you're dead on. Is business planning. In order to make sure that you understand the business outcomes, then what we need to do is work with the business to help them with their strategies and make ourselves available to do that and immerse ourselves in that process. You know, we're asking for the business unit and the business leaders to come and engage with us. I think that was on the last one, wasn't it? Sorry. Yeah, the last one there is overmanage the stakeholder involvement. So what we're asking the stakeholder, we're grabbing the stakeholder and we're bringing them with us and we're saying, get involved with our design, get involved with our development. And I guess what I'm suggesting is, that's great, but they need to drag us into their business planning. You know, we need to start to think about it and look through a little different glasses here and understanding what they're trying to drive to and partner with them to help articulate that. And so that's this business strategy, you know, where you take a business strategy, develop a business case, and then these are the typical things that are included in a business case that, you know, for the business cases that I've seen. And I don't know if you guys have seen business cases that vary from this, or, you know, sometimes it may be just 2 lines on a sheet of paper. It says, deliver this. You know, but what we're really asking these guys to do is to look at the objectives, look at the drivers, outline the expectations, and then figure out what the benefits are. What are you really trying to get, and what is the measurable value? And you've got to have the business sponsor articulate that to you. They've got to be able to commit to what they're looking for this to do, realizing that, you know, it's got to be an ultimate value over time, and it's going to change in the process. Yes?
I'm curious if you've seen any IT departments pushing back on the business and saying, okay, let's think about a lean startup and not write a line of code until we have a customer that's willing to pay for this.
It depends upon the funding model. Yeah, you know, the question was, can IT push back to the business and say, look, we're not moving forward with this until we understand what you're asking for us to do and what your outcomes. Is that your question?
Not even what they're asking to do, that they might be clear on what they want to do, but no customer in the world cares about it. So
right.
Prove it to me that someone wants
yeah,
to
prove it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think that's a trust relationship that has to happen and evolve over time. You know, but part of it goes back to, is your IT organization a call center? You know, if this is an allocation and I'm the business and I'm saying, hey, I'm paying for you anyway, this is what I want you to do, then you'll get into that, you know, that fight all day, right? But if you have a project-based funding model, then you can probably drive that a little stronger to say, you know, why are we going to go and spend, you know, $500,000 rewriting this website when the value is very, very little? All you're trying to do is bring in 10% more, you know, site visits. Where if we deliver this mobile application for the same type of money, you now can you're looking at opening a new market and generating revenue that's 20% greater. You know, then you can really get into that conversation with them. Good question. So that business planning, and I keep hitting the wrong button here. And then taking that business plan and defining the business features, that business stream, and really breaking it down to the benefits and the expense. You know, not sitting back and looking at the feature itself and putting some high-level cost on it that doesn't have teeth to it or doesn't have some level of understanding of the immediate and the ultimate value that they're looking for. And those are tough conversations to have because you know, a lot of folks, the business leadership that I've worked with in the past, a lot of them, you know, they want to tell you, this is what I want and this is what I think it's going to do, but you know, and as an IT, they want you to commit when you're going to do it and how much it's going to cost and when are they, you know, and how they're going to, what the quality level is going to be. But they won't commit to you what that expectation is going to be when it hits. And so, you know, especially if you're supporting your own organization, let's say you're not a consultant, you're working within, you're an IT professional working with your own business leaders, you know, then that becomes, you know, the C-level discussion. And they've got to engage in this conversation and help tear down those walls as well so that there's more synchronized. Again, it goes back to that point, though, that I pointed out before, that the CEO has got to see the CIO and the business and the IT as truly an enabler for moving forward, or else those conversations are very, very hard to have, because then it's just about is IT delivering the value, and the value is just, are you cranking it out, or are you giving us everything we want by the date and time? And there's no accountability from a business standpoint. And so, you know, in that situation, it's going to be really hard to focus on the business value that you're driving. You really have to take this journey together. And part of it starts with planning. You know, it's not this, you know, coming in November and providing a business plan that says, you know, we're going to bring about, you know, we're going to implement 4 different applications. They want to open 3 different markets, and it needs to be delivered by June, and we have $1.5 million set aside for it. Well, what does that really mean, you know, and how does that fit in the overall portfolio of what you're trying to do as a business? And especially if I'm the CIO, and remember now my compensation is going to start to be based upon revenue generation. So I can start to ask questions about that. Now, wait a minute. Why are we investing in this initiative versus that initiative? And how can we focus better with you side by side to deliver this value? And then, have you guys heard of COHAA? Anybody know COHAA? So, you know, you have this idea of business value, and you've articulated this business value. And this is part of, again, this evolution of the conversation with the business, is talk to them about what you're doing and help them understand what needs to be delivered for your product to be a good product, but also help them understand what could be added to make it a great product. You know, what's going to make the difference with this initiative that you're undertaking? What's going to set you apart from the others? And there's a couple of curves on here. One is, you know, just a must-have. If you're just doing what you have to have in that application, then it's just going to exist. It's just going to be out there, and you're just keeping the lights on. Versus investing a little bit more in performance and making sure that you're expanding the performance a bit, so that you know, people are using, or the user base or the consumer can now drive a little bit more value out of it. I was just with an energy company yesterday, and we're looking at redoing one of their self-service applications. And so we're talking to them, and they wanted us just to re-platform. And we were coming back with some ideas, and the business leader said to me, said, well, 80% of the time, people just come in, they get on, they check out their account, they pay their bill, and they get off. And so the comps that we went in with, and we had spent some time building out some comps for this site, and we showed him how within the application, people can go in and change, you know, the idea of how they're using their product. It's an energy company, so they can go in and say, you know, by room, they can, you know, I have a TV, I have 4 incandescent lights, I run the air conditioner, you know, whatever, by room. And as a result, it shows you what you can predict from your energy bill would be for the month. Well, he about fell off his chair because, you know, all he wanted was this thing to be re-platformed. You know, he was just looking at basic. And what we were doing was we were moving him into performance, but also beyond performance to delight. You know, are we doing something that he didn't expect, and we were, and he really grabbed onto that. And we had a much deeper and a better conversation because we were thinking out of the box just a little bit. You know, he gave us these requirements, and if we had just sat down and taken his requirements and come back and said, okay, here's re-platforming your application, you know, it would be good, but you know, it really wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have moved him forward any, and we were wanting to move him forward. And so you look at this, there's a gray box on there too. I don't know if it shows very well up there, but in the middle, that little strike zone. And that's the point of indifference. You know, and we do a lot of that in our applications, right? Where we're just building applications, basic functions. You know, we're really not trying to move the needle any, and we should be. And we should show our business sponsors the type of value that we can deliver, and let them make the decision over time. And this is just a good way to approach prioritization. You know, the must-haves, and again, these are obvious. but sometimes they're overlooked. You know, it's kind of like getting a hotel room where you expect a bed to be in the hotel room. No one said there'd be a bed there, but you just expect to have one. Or you get a car, you expect that it has brakes. Well, you know, you guys have built applications before too. You've probably seen that, right? Where they ask you to build an application, there's something that was not written, and so your developers just didn't do it. You know, and it's something that's just elementary to the application itself. You know, those must-haves have got to be in your product when you're releasing. You've got to know that as an IT provider. But then also moving beyond that for performance needs. Again, this is satisfaction is proportional to the level of performance implemented by the project. And this is really driving a strong customer satisfaction is getting performance. And then, you know, if you're able to delight them, I mean, this is you know, this is a happy surprise. This really drives satisfaction beyond just delivering to their needs. Do you guys, is any type of projects that you guys involved with? Do you have these kind of types of conversations with your businesses? Yes.
I was wondering at what level you would have these conversations. Before the project starts, while the project's going, at the end of the project, maybe you're discussing future potential. I mean, I think all of those are valid times, but it feels a little mixed up.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm getting at?
I see exactly what you're getting at. The question was, when do you do this? And, you know, I think that most projects that we try to kick off, we try to have a discovery phase. And in the discovery phase, we try to have, you know, out of that, we try to plot the roadmap for that initiative. And sometimes you can kick around ideas in that discovery phase and take it back, especially, you know, if you're looking at comps. If you're building comps in a discovery phase, like the discussion yesterday with these guys, you know, we built out these comps and showed him what we could do. Also, in the middle of their sprints and releases, as you're finishing a sprint, you can look at that and say, okay, now if we add this and that, and, you know, come back with some innovation yourself and present at the end of the sprint. Again, that's that agility to change the composite of the next sprint, and maybe they'll buy into it and say, okay, let's give this a try. Let's, for the next 2 weeks, this next sprint, let's spend a little extra time and let's build out this functionality and let's see where it takes us. And then again, at the end of the release, you know, you can go back and refactor the whole thing. You'd hope that you wouldn't. You'd hope that it would be an evolving process. And so back to this diagram we started with. And again, it's business strategy, being driven by those drivers, and the project portfolio. And then, again, taking that process of transitioning business requirements to business solutions and gaining that efficiency. And remember, I told you that that's where I think that that's the pennies on the dollar. I think by helping the business prioritize and take your feedback from that ongoing evolution in your development process and helping them align to the outcomes and understanding their outcomes, you know, you're feeding that then back into the business strategy, and hopefully your company over time or your department is starting to evolve and adapt just a little bit as well based upon lessons learned and understanding the market and understanding that they have this capability in IT now that will allow them to do things a little differently. And you evaluate the benefits after every release. And you feed that back in, and if you do that, I believe that you're now doing the right things. You know, so by doing things right, you're generating some pennies. But if you're doing the right things and you're really driving your business, you know, now you're talking about incremental gains over time. So a couple of examples, and I talked about a couple of these earlier. You know, the digital sales aids or self-service account management. Isn't it crazy? You know, we used to staff up all these call centers, and we still do. But now people want to, you know, on their iPad or whatever, they want to pay their own bills. They want to, you know, in their bed at night or across the kitchen table at 3 in the morning, whatever. You know, they want to pay their bills. They want to sign up for this service or that service, and they want to do that to themselves. They don't want to call the 1-800 number and talk to somebody about it. And so, the more you can equip them to do it, then, you know, hopefully over time it's going to reduce your cost. So if you look at that in delivering account management, can you really decrease help desk calls? Yes, and that's an immediate value. But over time, Are you really moving the needle? Are you really decreasing the cost of delivering services? And again, capturing and measuring those metrics over time and making sure that you're not just satisfied with the immediate value, and then you can start to innovate about how to decrease costs further, how to increase revenues further as you move forward as well. So I do have two examples. One is a sales and service productivity suite. It's one that we developed for a global company, and they have a sales team around the world, and we did this application for them for distributing information through their through this portal. And right out of the gate, we got this thing started. The customer was very, very happy, and they came back and said, you know, these are their quotes. You know, they went from 10% to 90% efficient in gathering requirements. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's great, isn't it? I mean, that's showing value. And then the VP himself came in, and as we were delivering this, he said, you know, we're not a black box anymore. You know, the business actually looks at us. Our users are looking at results in 3 months, and we've never been able to do that before. And that was fantastic. But our goal and what we were really trying to drive them to and what they're measuring to now, we went beyond this. We talked to them about, okay, that's great, but are we really moving the needle based upon your organizational objectives? And their organizational objectives is that in 5 years, they're going to increase their revenue by 50%. This is a services-based company, and this business unit generates $2 billion a year. So are they actually going to jump that service revenue through this solution over time by 50% in 5 years? That's what that VP is being measured by. And what he was telling us was he was happy that we were able to generate things in 3 months. And we're saying that's fantastic, but let's move beyond that. Let's figure out what you're being measured by, and let's figure out a better, cheaper, quicker, better way to get you to this ultimate value. And also to decrease service costs. That's the other thing they're trying to do through this is decrease service costs. And so that's an active example that's going on right now, and you know, we have a couple years here to see if we hit those goals, but the thought and the way that we're planning with them now is changing. They're looking at it a little different. They're not looking at just this incremental gains they're having over time, but they're looking at the longer term, and they're trying to be innovative as we move forward, and it's really, really good, because now they're getting more funding too. Yes?
How do you measure efficiency in gathering business requirements?
You know, how do you gather this? There are multitudes of ways. I'm not sure how he did this. I don't know if he looked at this as being time frame or not. I'm not sure. This was his quote. How would you guys, the question was this: how do you measure the efficiency in gathering business requirements? Number of rewrites, the time it takes to do it. I don't know. Anybody have any other ideas? How much the business knows for what they really want. Yes, that's good. They all know what they want, don't they? Yes.
How many bucks do you have for missing requirements or requirement clarification?
Bingo. Yeah, there's a hole right there. There's a gap. Did you hear that one? That's good. The business knows what they want, and then they're able to articulate that, and you capture it all, right? Very good. Another example. This is a compliance, a risk rating based project that we were doing for a client, and you know, we got engaged, and what they were doing is they had different units, and these units were all measuring the risk for their service in their own ways. They all had their own Excel spreadsheets, they had their own little applications they were using, and so they brought us in to create a uniform end-to-end process that they would all use, an automated platform. And so we got engaged, and we were working on, and the idea was we were delivering, and the VP of IT came up and talked about how quickly we were understanding, and we were working side by side with their team, and we were transforming these technical solutions faster than his own subject matter experts were. And that was a gain for him, because now he has concurrent activity. He has his team working on some things, and he has us working on something else, and now he's getting you know, some more throughput, but also he's finding efficiency in what we're doing. And then The VP of the business unit came in and talked about the consistent ability to deliver. You know, and again, it's the efficiencies that we were able to deliver, the evolving requirements and quality solutions. And so, again, you know, we were using that agile process very, very effectively. We were aligning with his goals over time, and it was working well. But the ultimate is, these are their goals. This is what they're measured by. They had can they decrease risk by 30%? Over time, are they actually going to be able to decrease their corporate exposure, their risk over time with the products that and services they're providing? And are they able to report effectively? You know, again, you're talking about compliance. Can they increase their reporting effectiveness by 24%? And those were the goals. And again, over time, we'll know. So I'm going to wrap it up here from the presentation, and then we can have some question and answer. And really what I'm talking about in the overall view of this is looking at IT getting a seat at the table. You know, that CIO and the team that is designing, developing, and delivering these solutions is actually being in a collaborative relationship with the rest of the company, sitting side by side with the business sponsors and are having input and trying to ask some of those tough questions and having tough dialogue back and forth around some efficiencies that you don't maybe not have in IT, but some effectiveness that you're looking for within the business units as well. And really trying to work around that table together towards the organization's overall goal. And so that at the end of the day, from a organizational perspective, you know, your goals then as the IT department supporting these guys is that you're really enabling business. You know, you're able to take the business and help them move forward. They can actually see a path for moving forward now, not just producing, you know, good results or producing good applications now, but they're really looking to drive the effectiveness and the efficiencies that they're looking for. And you're integrated in an organization to really trying to tear down those daggone walls. You know, they've been built up over a long, long time, and it's going to take a long time to break them down, but we need to do that and make sure that, that IT and business and everyone is working well together over a shared mission. And through that, really allow the board and the CEO to increase market share, to drive the company to wherever they need to. Maybe take a local company and drive it national, or take a national company and drive it global. Offer new services, acquire new companies because they can absorb them successfully. You know, whatever their goals happen to be, you know, IT is empowering them to be able to do that. Q&A. So, you know, I don't know if this is, I'd just be interested to hear, I mean, driving business value is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. One thing that we're going to do, COHAA and I, we're going to put together a business leadership information group, a league, a business league. And so we're going to start meeting this summer. And so I have a sign-up sheet here, and I'll pass it around or whatever. If you guys want to sign up, free, we'll just, you know, have a couple of sessions and really talk about this at a detailed level and share real examples and talk about how do you maybe take some of the concepts of business value and implement it within your organization and really try to drive change within your organization. But I mean, are you hearing business outcomes-based conversations within your organizations today, or is that something that your company is not mature enough to be talking to IT about? I'm just wondering, what are you guys hearing? Anybody? Yes?
I don't hear it in the clients I talk to because business doesn't see IT as having a seat at the table. So to your point, what do you think is the biggest hurdle to IT getting a seat at the table? It's earned respect, I think. You know, I think it's earned respect, and I think you have to highlight the ability to deliver. But then I also think that, you know, someone mentioned up there about servant leadership.
you know, I think IT needs to take on that mode a bit as well, and maybe not be so caught up in maybe the things that IT needs to focus on, but really try to open up and have and talk to the business and figure out where there's some overlap or where you can get some mutual gain just to build that trust and respect over time versus continuing to, you know, this is my agenda and this is what I'm doing, and this is in the business saying, well, this is my agenda, this is what I'm doing, and there's not too many things on the agendas that are the same. It's, you know, I think it's relational too. I mean, I think you got to have that relationship, and it's got to be based upon trust. You guys ever read 5 Dysfunctions of a Team? Patrick Lencioni. That's a good book. You know, it's got to be that, you know, the bottom of the pyramid's trust, right? And so you got to build that trust in everything. That's where it starts. They have to trust that you're looking at the same, that you have the same desires that they have. Different duties in getting there, but the same desires. What else? You guys, anybody else here in business outcome type discussion in your IT organizations? How many organizations, how many of you guys are where your IT has a seat at the table? You do have a seat? They listen to you?
Well, you do well.
Very good. And what, well being what?
Build a product that helps them sell and deliver the time frame they use it in. Don't cause too much turmoil in that process.
Do you drag them into your process?
Yeah, dragging or trick them into it, I guess, sometimes. You gotta kind of make them not realize that you're putting a process on them and let them think that they're doing it themselves. But the end result's all that matters.
Exactly. Is it easier the next time?
Actually, it is. It does become much easier because then they realize that you're solving a problem for them, and they come back to you because in the end result, they want to solve problems too. And so if you're the facilitator of that, they'll come back to you time after time.
Good, very good. Anyone else good examples of how this is working? Yes?
I think transparency, when it's not working or you're coming up against hurdles, asking the right questions in the front helps. Why are we doing this, or what business need you're trying to solve? But if it's not working, maybe you missed something in the front end. But just being transparent about issues that are going on, because it could be indicative of bigger problems or a mess.
Transparency. That's hard. That's hard. I mean, we all have skeletons in the closet. I mean, you're talking about opening a closet door, and if you don't have a seat at the table and you're exposing your failures, wow, that's risky, isn't it? But if you build that trust, then hopefully it becomes easier over time, and realize that they have skeletons in their closet too. You know, let's kick that door open. Let's talk about those in there too. Anything else? Guys have any other comments or questions for me? Yes.
In your example with the energy company, when you delivered the extra feature that was provided them,
Yes.
Was that a feature that was actually delivered and shown, or was it a kind of a mock-up that you saw and provided that?
It was a mock-up that they saw. So they gave us a list of requirements, and they said, here's what we want you to do. You know, A, B, and C. And what we did is we said, okay, we'll do A, B. You really don't want to do C, do you? Really what you want to do is D and E in place of C. So we didn't just add to it, we modified one of their goals and carried it a little further. And so what happened when we sat down and talked to them, they really respected that we had spent time and gone a little deeper, and that we were actually coming back consultative with them. And so as a result, he's getting more funding. You know, he saw the value and said, you know, I don't want people to get on the website, pay their bill, and go away. I want them to stay for a little while longer. And so, you know, he's making it just happened yesterday. So I'm hoping he's successful, but he's going to go and hopefully get more funding and come back and say, it's approved, let's go. But it was an investment we made. And that's kind of that servanthood I think I was talking about, just to try not just be an order taker. You know, IT just can't be an order taker. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. I would never do that. I mean, do you guys ever get caught in that? You try to do something nice and you find yourself extended and they're not happy with anything because, you know, or you've overcommitted, you know, they expect you to deliver A, B, and C, and you added D to it, and because you added D, you can't deliver A, B, and C, and now everybody's ticked off. Oh my gosh, yeah. So you got to get that approval up front. Do the analysis and present it before you do the design development. So, anything else? Very good. Well, I really appreciate your attention, and I'll have these sheets of paper at each of these stairwells here if you guys want to sign up and join us in our league. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.